Hello everyone, I think we can get started. Welcome to our webinar today. I'm Eva Majkutewicz, I'm Customer Success Manager at Inline Manual, and today I'm with Marek to talk to you about design and customization. This webinar is advanced, so there will be some technical skills discussed here. We'll show you a lot of examples of customization that you can do with CSS. And all this CSS code will be available to you in a few days. So I hope you will enjoy it, and I hope you're as excited as I am today. A few words of introduction before we start. Just to remind you that if you need any help, you can contact us on Twitter, you can send us an email, and you can also visit our support portal to start a chat with our support team. Don't worry, the webinar will be recorded, and we'll send you the recording afterwards along with the presentation. A few words about us. We developed Inline Manual in 2012 to solve a common problem with user training and product adoption. We knew that there had to be something better than painful PDFs with lots of screenshots. So we came up with an idea of interactive inline help, which eventually evolved into a full service. Now anyone can create their own guides, tooltips, or even feedback surveys for their customers on top of their web applications. Here's our agenda for today. We'll talk about customization. We will show you some amazing examples of what is possible, and we will show you how to do it with CSS. And there's a bonus for you, because this CSS codes that we will use will be available for you in a few days. We also included a short presentation, like an introduction to CSS for you, for your reference, and we'll send this whole presentation along with the recording. So let's start. Inline Manual default look is very simple, not to say ugly, but it is like that because we wanted to make it very flexible for our customers. So you can make it look exactly as you wish. You can fully customize the look of your topics. You can completely match your brand's identity. You can, for example, change fonts or colors or position in the widget in the site settings. However, if you want to do more, if you want some advanced changes, you can use CSS. And some of these changes will require more technical knowledge, more skills. So the help of your front-end developer may be needed. But you can also send us an email about our professional services, and you can provide us with your project guidelines, and we will make sure that your topics look exactly as you want them to. And now I want to show you a few examples of customization of what is possible, and we will do similar things later during the demo. So let's take a look. Here, here's a step from one of our customers' walkthrough. As you can see, the step looks like a part of the application itself, which is very important. Here we have another example of modal step. We have a customer who changed their layout to include an image of the founder along with an introduction. And you can change the code, the HTML, inside of the steps within the authoring tool. So you don't really have to limit yourself when it comes to making content, because you can make something different if you want to. And you can also customize the image so it looks like it's a little bit above the step, the model. And this can be done with CSS, and we'll show you later how to do that. Here's a simple example of a video that is embedded in one of the. This can be done simply within the authoring tool. Here we have another example, very nice. When the user joins their application for the first time, they will find this short introduction tour waiting for them. And there's a small welcome message on the side and a video on the other side. And there is an option to skip the tour if the users want to, but they can also proceed to the next step. And in this next step, they will find a short checklist. Here our customer have given their customers a set of tasks to complete as part of their onboarding process. And it's great not only because it promotes user engagement, but it also tells the users what to expect. So this is also a really nice example, and we'll show you something similar, how to achieve this. And now some tips and tricks for you. So let's start with our simple player appearance settings. You can access player appearance settings in your site settings. This is per site. You can change there with just a few simple clicks, for example, fonts, colors, position, and for more advanced customization, you can apply their CSS code. And the player appearance settings have a live preview, so you can see how your changes will look like right away. But it doesn't work the same way with CSS. You won't see your live preview there. And I think that most, or at least part of the styling, can be simply done with our player appearance settings. However, for more advanced customization, you might want to use CSS. And why to use CSS? First, because topics will be completely consistent with the look of your application. You have total control over the design. You have a lot of flexibility. You can fully match your brand's identity. You can fully customize your topics so they look as you want. And it gives you great flexibility, and you can really make your topic stand out. And here's a few things that you can customize. For example, you can customize the widget, you can customize steps, you can customize tooltips or hotspots, but also articles, checklists, and our feedback and NPS service. And how to use CSS. All elements have specific class names, so there shouldn't be any problem between styles of Inline Manual and the style of your page. When you add a CSS code in your site setting, it applies to all the topics. So if you want to make changes just for one particular step, you need to add a custom class to your CSS and also to the step within the authoring tool. This way, this CSS code will only apply to that one particular step that you want to. And as I already mentioned, these CSS changes won't be visible in the live preview in player settings. So you need to change it on your site, how it looks like. Apart from CSS, you can customize your topics by adding some visuals, like images, illustrations, videos, and GIFs. So when and why you should use images? First, to illustrate some conceptual ideas and to easily grab users' attention, but also to make a point or emphasize a statement in your message. It's a good idea to add images when you want to communicate something that your users can't see directly within your application. But it also can be an image, for example, of your founder, of a support team, or anything like that. And a good practice is to don't put images of something that your users can see directly within your application. So it's better to show them than putting just an image. When it comes to GIFs, they are great when you want to show aspect of your application before users have reached a specific point. It's also good when you want to convince or encourage your users to do something which may not be super simple or completely obvious. But if this GIF or this animated sequence is too long, you may want to use a video. And videos are great when you want to show users something they can see within your application. So this can be, for example, a welcome video from your support team, or it can be a video showing users how the product they are buying is made. You can also show a video of a new feature that is only available for an upgrade to encourage users to subscribe to a higher plan. So some ideas how to use videos. And we included a list of all resources that are excellent, in my opinion, and that I think will allow you to create great tutorials. So you can find here free illustrations, free images, and some tips and ideas how to create GIFs or videos. And as this presentation will be sent to you, all these links will be available for you. And actually, that was my short introduction. And now I would like to give voice to Marek so he can show you how to create all of this amazing customization.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Eva. I hope everyone can hear me. I have the pleasure to show you some other things with Inline Manual, and especially how you can create these custom steps and designs and so on. And we will go quite deep. And I'll show you as well some different layouts, how we can do different things with the steps essentially. So yeah, you will see. And if you have any questions during this, feel free to just put anything you have, on your mind into the chat itself. And basically, what we did is that we looked into the questions that you have been asking throughout the past months in our support channels, and as well what you have entered into the question that we ask in the registration form of this webinar, and also what we thought that might be of interest to you as well. So it's a combination of that. And we were really kind of like focused mostly on this like CSS customization. So it's basically like taking over the styles of Inline Manual, adapting it to your application, and stuff like that. So if it will be too heavy, don't worry. As Eva mentioned, it will be recorded, so you can then slow down, like watch it whenever you need afterwards, whenever you will have time. And you can just watch and see what is actually possible to get some inspiration, really. So you should all be able to see my screen right now, and just let me know if you can see that, but it should be, I can see that it is. Okay, perfect. So great. So what we will start with, so we have here this kind of like, again, basic demo application that we are using throughout the webinars. And we have here already Inline Manual player implemented, and I created here a folder with different kind of like topics that we will be going through. And what we will start with is essentially this, as Eva shown you, there's the settings and the player appearance per site. So basically here you can customize on the site level all of these like different colors for the buttons and so on, the basic stuff really. So this is the first place where you will start looking. And then there's the CSS tab, which basically allows you to add the CSS, so the custom styles essentially. It looks like this. So you are always targeting a specific elements, and then you can style it. And I will be showing you what you can do with that essentially. So I switch back again to my demo site, and we will start with the walkthrough styles. So this is the basic look, and again, as Eva mentioned, I mean, Inline Manual doesn't look that pretty from the like very first time that you start implementing it. It's also because we didn't want to make it too or kind of like keep you locked into a specific design and a specific kind of like options that you have usually, that you can change only the colors. So it looks like this, and then you can customize it. So this is the default step, for example, like how it looks like when you just like change the colors, for example, of the buttons and so on. Then if I click on the next button, we have here a step which is actually it changed the color, and the CSS for this used is essentially just this. Let me actually just zoom in. So here we have this dark step, and basically you can see here that there is some sort of like a class name, I am dark step, and then there's a color, which is the text color, and then there's the background color. And that's it really. And then what I can do in the authoring tool for this specific step is that I can open up the authoring tool. I can then open up this walkthrough that we are working on, which is this walkthrough styles, and jump to the second step. And basically here I will see in the advanced, there's a custom class. So I can reference this class and reuse this kind of like a styling for this specific step, and it will be dark. If I remove this class, it will default to the default colors. But again, if I edit, it will be dark again. I can go to the first step, for example, and apply this custom class as well for the first step, preview that, and again, it changed the color as we wanted. So this is the idea behind the custom classes itself. So you can always kind of like create your own class, change whatever you want, and then it will be applied to that step essentially. So that allows you to create different styles for the steps, and you can define it here inside of the CSS step. What we usually recommend is that if you are going to define your own classes, you can, or you should kind of like name them in a sort of like a unique way that you would like to kind of like prefix them. We usually use IM or INM. That's up to you, and dash, and then something specific. This is just so it doesn't clash with your application styles, right? So if you use always this kind of like a pattern, you know that it belongs to, for example, Inline Manual, and then you can tweak it, and you will make sure that also it doesn't collide, as I mentioned. And we have there actually more of these. So for example, here we have the blue step. We have then also gradient step. So let me just quickly show you these. So if I preview again this topic, so this is the default one, click on the next button. We have the dark one. I click next. This is the purple one. So that's basically this one. It should actually say purple. And you can see that here I'm using as well this kind of like a notation that this is basically a comment. So I can have my own comments into the CSS. So it kind of like allows me to understand what it is about, and this won't be used anywhere. So it always starts with this and ends with this, and in between you can put your own kind of like notes just to understand what it relates to. So this one is the purple step, for example. Coming back to the demo, so here we have this purple step. Now, if I go to the next, so this is the power of CSS. You should be able to see this, the color kind of like animating and of the background. So it should go from one color to another. And this is as well something that you can do just through the CSS. It's a little bit more advanced, but you can then play around with it if you want to have something like this. And again, it can bring more attention to that step if the user is, let's say, looking at it, but I wouldn't use it that often. And just to give you kind of like a glimpse how it might look like, so this is the gradient step, and there's basically just some background, what the colors should be, how it should be positioned, and so on. I'm not going to go into the details so much. And then there is also the animation, so you can actually animate that transition between these colors. So you can have nicely animated background to make it a little bit more, let's say, pleasant. It depends on the colors and so on. So that's another option, and I hope that these kind of like examples might give you realize some sort of like an inspiration what is possible. And let's say when you will be thinking about how you want to style it, and let's say what do you have inside of your animation, what kind of experience your users you want to offer to, then you can use these that we will be showing here. Another step shows one of these examples of the images that are kind of like over the or sticking out of the steps, right? So you can see that, for example, this is like the well-known image that you see in the default template that we have there. And what I did essentially is I copied that image and then basically made this top part or this upper part transparent. So the image is there as we know, but it's actually cut off and it's made transparent. So that's the image itself. Let me see how it will look like if I open it up here. So this is actually the image. And then what we did there is that we actually positioned this image a little bit through the CSS again to make it stick out of it. So if I go back to the step, I think it was this 5th step, then it has this class again, I am welcome step. If I go to the CSS of this, that should be here. And we are targeting basically directly the image in this case, and we are just saying, move it up by 61 pixels. So it's kind of like sticking, but it's not, it's outside of the step content. If I remove the class from there, it will look like this, right? So the image is there. Its height is actually like up to here, but through the CSS we are saying we don't want to make it hide like this, but we want to kind of like stick it out. So that's how we can do this. And as I was shown, some of these examples where, let's say, the items are sticking out of these let's say, steps and so on, sometimes looks quite nice. So that's our 5th step that I wanted to show you. Then let me just go back to the CSS. We have a quick question then. Can CSS be applied to launchers too? So I can have one for running etc. Yes, so launchers can have their own custom class as well, and I'll quickly show it afterwards. Then each of these elements within the inline manual have its own class, a specific class actually. So you can target them as you wish. If I just inspect this one, so within the let's say the Google Chrome or any other actually application, you have developer tools, and you can actually like right click and then click on the inspect, which basically takes you to the HTML itself. And here you can see the structure. So let me actually just zoom in so you can see it. I'll also make it a little bit bigger. And if you use these developer tools, I mean, don't be afraid of the developer tools itself or of the name, then this is actually the step. And here are also these classes. So for example, there is popover title, there is content, there's the header image. So this is specific for this template. And then you can basically see which classes you can use. For the next example, we have used the buttons. So I wanted to show you how we can also style different buttons. So if I switch to the 6th step, you can see that each of these buttons has different color, something that you can't do right now through the player appearance. So if I go just here to the button section, you have just basically one color for each of the buttons. And well, not each, but for all of them. So if I go to the CSS, basically how it can look like, so we have here different color steps. I still apply this different colors, which is basically the custom class that I have applied to the step. So basically if I jump here to the custom class, you can see that there's this different colors. So it actually, all the other steps, they don't have these color coded buttons because it applies just to that. That's what I'm saying in that CSS. And basically I'm saying here that the background color for the previous button is this one. So that's the color previous. Needless to say, these are the hex colors. And what you can do, for example, if you inspect this previous button, click on inspect, and then here in the or at the bottom right corner, you can see these colors there, and you can, if you want to kind of like preview it yourself without actually tweaking the CSS inside of Inline Manual yet, you can basically just do it here, where you can either type it or you can use this like color picker, change it, see what fits best, and then copy that color and use it in that CSS and apply it. So this way you can target, you can see that each of these, again, buttons have its own class. So there's a popover button previous, next, and as well the progress there in between has its own class. So you can really target it. If you look a little bit further up, then each of these topics and the steps themselves, they have their own class. And because we are now in the preview, I can't show it to you, but basically you can as well target through the CSS specific topic. So you can have, let's say, the CSS just for this topic with a specific ID on a specific step. So these CSS classes are very specific. So you can, if you want to, you can target it. So that's how you can use the buttons and any other part that you can actually change. In some cases, you might as well see that what the inline manual is trying to do as well is to inherit the classes from the application. Sometimes it's wanted, sometimes not, but you can always override that behavior with your custom classes, for example, or code. Let's see what we have on the next step. Right, so this is quite often asked. This like, how do we put the next button to the right? And what you can do, I mean, I have, again, just like for this specific step, we have there this custom class, I am next right. And then if I look it up in my CSS, it's basically just this, and it will move it to the right. So you can use this afterwards as well. If you want to apply it to all the steps, basically what you will do, you will remove this custom class that we are using, and this is the inline manuals class, and it will basically change it for all of these next buttons within all of these steps for all the topics that you have. Okay, so that's the next button. Let me see what we have next there, and I think that's about it for this part. And further down to more advanced styles. So if I go here to walkthrough styles too, again, as Eva mentioned before, it's really nice if you can kind of like put together a nice set of images as well, because the images do quite a lot when you are presenting these walkthroughs. I quite like when it kind of like transitions, like here when you have this image there, the image, these kind of like shapes are actually part of the image, even though the image ends here and it's like it has like a white background, but it looks like that the step is kind of like a more kind of like built in, or the image is kind of like more built in into this one, right? So it's kind of like, yeah, I quite like it. It looks quite nice. And there's actually no CSS involved in this one because it just like it's a nice image that fits in. This is again just an example that there can be these transparent images. So if you have an image and then you have a background in the or of the step, color step, if you use the transparent images, it will actually adopt the colors of the background. So if you use transparent images, then you can freely change the colors or background of the step through the CSS, and it will look always the same. So transparent images might help as well in this, like without having the background essentially. And here is a more advanced example or layout that we will look into it a little bit more. So this is something that we are being asked about quite often. And basically what this is a step. Again, it's the standard step as you usually see. It has a table layout, which has, this is basically the first column of the table. This is the second column of the table. And then these styles are our own essentially. So it's kind of like these bits and pieces, and they are linking to specific walkthroughs. So it's like almost like custom buttons and style differently. So this gives, let's say, the user to kind of like these are the tutorials that he can do right now, and show them, that they can click on that and it will launch another walkthrough. So I'll just quickly go through that, because up until now I was showing you the changes that you can do just through the CSS. This actually includes as well the content changes. So for example, if let me try to expand this. So this is kind of like the view inside of the WYSIWYG, but of course there's a little bit more going on in the background, where you can see that there's the table. So you can see sort of like the table borders, the images here. Here is the text, and if I switch to the source, it includes some HTML. So for example, we have here this kind of like a IM tutorial place or wrapper, I would say. And then we have here like different kind of like titles and so on, and the content for each of these items there. So for example, if I want to add a new one, in this case, what I can do is that I can just basically copy this one and place it again here on top of there. And we should see like 4 of them, right? And it's built that it will actually scale up the image. So you can see that no matter how high it is, it will kind of like reduce the size of the image. So if I remove that again, you can see that it will fit still well. So This is again something that you can do not just through the CSS, but through the HTML. We will provide you with the code for this as well. We are actually planning to introduce some sort of like a layouts like these, so we can then easily use that. And what you can notice here is that there's this on-click option, which is like on the one of these really, and it allows you to link to a specific topic. So for example, there's this inline manual player activate, and then I can put it there, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which will launch a topic with ID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So as well as in the HTML, you can leverage this, and on top of any part of the step, you can actually just apply this parameter, and it will launch a specific topic of yours. You can also use there, let's say, activate step, and then you will pass it the topic ID and the step ID, and so it will launch a specific step. Or even you can use their, let's say, go to step, and there will be this one like next, and that means that it will go to the next step when the user will click on that. And these kind of like overview screens, that helps the users, of course, to kind of like, let's say, try something else, navigate through it. And I think it's quite nice to have it there to give them the overview, especially as well these like minutes, how long it might take, because people are quite hesitant when they are clicking on a walkthrough and they see that there are too many steps. But even though there might be, let's say, 10 steps, it might take them just like 1 minute to go through. So these indicators are quite nice. So you will get this layout afterwards, and you can play around with it. But again, it shows how flexible it can be, and you can do even more with this. You can add there as well some animations and yeah, a lot of other things. So that's a more advanced layout. I've also shown you this code view, so basically you can switch to the HTML. So again, it makes it really flexible for you to apply whatever you like. And I did mention just briefly one more thing, which is that you can actually reuse, for example, if you see that your application is using specific, let's say, layouts and stuff like that. So for example, in this case, let me see if we can reuse something. Let's say, for example, we have here, let's say we have here these widgets. So let me just try that if it will be working. So for example, we have here some specific HTML, let's say this one. I can just inspect that, and then I can take, let's say this. Can I take this one? Yeah, so I'll just copy the HTML of this and go to the source. I haven't tried this, so I'm not sure if this will be working, but let's see. And copy it here, and you can actually see it there, right? So that's actually kind of like almost the same, except that it actually adapts to the step size. And what I wanted to show you with this is that you can actually reuse the HTML, because Inline Manual is taking the or inheriting some of the CSS from your application. You can then actually reuse some of these HTML elements. If you use the same classes and so on, you can place it into the step content through the source, and it in most cases it will look the same. So you can reuse bits and pieces from there, instead of, let's say, taking the screenshots, because for example, this is useful when you are I'm slightly drifting away from here, but let me explain why we are often doing this. Is that if I go to, let's say, this part, and I would like to, for example, use somewhere the submit button, usually within, and I would like to show it as part of the step. So let me actually just remove this, and I would be using it here, like click this button, and I will use basically this, and this is the button. So I'm just going to edit as HTML, copy that, or I think there is also copy HTML. Is it copy? I'm not sure. Maybe alter HTML. Well, I don't know, but you can edit it as HTML, copy the content. Again, I can switch to the source. I can paste the code in there, and it will place the button there, even though it does nothing, right? It's not active, but it says click this button. I mean, in this case, it doesn't really make sense, but I just want to show you something. If I assign it to this step as well, it says click this button, then it points still at the submit button, and why this is quite interesting is because it is reusing the same HTML, the same classes of the application. So for example, if the developers will decide that we are going to change the submit button color. So for example, this is the CSS of the application at the bottom right corner. And if they update it to, let's say that the submit will be like this, if I change that, and is it actually the right one? Right, it's on the hover. Let me just find the right one. This is not the one that we want. This is the one. So I believe, right. And you can see actually that all of the submit buttons are changing, including ours, inside of the step, right? So you don't have to worry, for example, if they change the colors or anything like that, they change the style, it will inherit it. So that's sometimes where it might be useful to use parts of the application itself and place it into the source. That's the content thing, kind of. Okay, so that I went a little bit away or drifted a little bit. I hope it was useful. So I'm not going to save this one. I'll go away from here. Let me just check what I have on the list next. Right, coming back to the buttons actually. So it's not that far away. Let me go to one of these walkthroughs that we had. I'll just add a step there. So let's say we had a step here, and I'll go here. And so by default, we have there these steps that are, let's say, at the bottom here, right? So you have the end step. We have it now renamed to got it, and usually it's like end. We can have there the previous step and so on. So these are kind of like the fixed steps that you can control via these buttons, whether they should appear there or not. Now, sometimes we hear that, what if I want to have my own buttons right in there, like using these custom buttons that we have, but I want to see it on one line, for example. So for that, we are using tables. So you can actually, this comes back to this like more advanced layout that you have seen before. So again, for this one, we can use a table layout where I can say I want one row of that table. I can have, let's say, or I want to have two columns because we will be placing two buttons. We will essentially try to replicate this, but instead we want to, let's say, the previous button, or actually, yeah, previous button, or actually we will have their next button instead, and we want to point the next button to launch another topic, which is not possible, for example, through these like default buttons. It either goes back and forth, or it will close the walkthrough. So we will have there the next button, which will go, which will launch another walkthrough, and then we can have there an end button, which will, let's say, launch another walkthrough as well. So we are creating this table with one row, two columns with border size. So we don't want to see the border around that table, and we will keep this as it is. So with 100%. So it basically fills in the entire step. We will edit, and here in the editor, you can actually see that the table is there. Now we can add a custom button. So the custom buttons are here. So if I click on that, I can say this will be next. And we will say it will link to a topic. We will choose any of these topics that we have there. We will say it's inline button. So basically when it's inline button, it won't span across the entire cell, but it will just fit the content. So if I click on the OK, we see the step there, and the next button is here. It's a table, so there's this second column, which is right now empty. So we can add second button into that cell, and then this will be, let's say, end. And again, it will link to a topic, and it will link to, let's say, another topic there. And again, it will be inline button. So now they are sitting next to each other, but we also want the end button to actually be on the right side. So what you can do is click into the cell, right click here, click on the cell and cell properties. And here you can set horizontal alignment, which can be to the right, and click OK. And it will align it to the right. So we are almost there. We have it almost the same, right? And this is our custom, and it actually points to different, it's launching different walkthroughs. If you want to, sometimes, for example, you have some specifics, like because this progress, it actually checks the steps numbers and so on. With the addition of the actions that we edit, and that you can skip steps and so on, it's not always accurate because the user can skip steps, or some steps might be just like completely like different branch and so on. You can as well have your own steps numbering if you want to, but it will be just a content, so you need to kind of like maintain it. It won't be dynamic, but might help in some cases. So for example, in this case, what we want to, we have like 2 columns table. So what we can do is that we can actually add additional table. Sorry, not table, but cell. So I can say insert cell after, and it will place it in between. And now I can say, let's say this is a step 8 out of 9. And then again, I can just click on the cell and cell properties, and then assign it to the, or align it to center. And then it looks like this. And if we have our own steps here, what I can do, I can basically remove all of these, the default ones. We have here this A button, which means like remove all of these buttons. So if I do that, you can see that it almost looks the same, but these buttons are custom, and basically it goes to specific walkthrough that we set up. So that's this one. So that's the kind of like the buttons that, or how you can create is sort of like an alignment, and you can use the tables as well for other kind of like a layout, positioning, or different layouts within the step itself. So that's the playing with the buttons. Okay. Another thing that we are being asked quite often is branding. So for example, if you imagine you might have a specific, let's say, company that is using your application, and you would like to brand it for them. So let's say you can show their logo in the content and things like that. And I have an example for that here as well. So we have a walkthrough here, which is just like a one-step walkthrough, which you might have seen on our website, which is basically just this one. It's a step like this. It's positioned at the bottom right corner, which is again achieved through custom CSS. Actually, I'll just quickly show you that. So we have here just a class, no buttons there, ABS. Not sure why I called it this way, but I guess ABS as absolute. Again, it should have some sort of like a prefix like IM. And if I go and check this class, so basically here you can see that there's this position fixed, bottom, and so on. So basically we are changing the position from center to actually be it in the or at the bottom right corner, and that it will stick there. So right now if I'm scrolling, it's still there. It's at the bottom right corner. So you can do that afterwards as well if you want. And what I wanted to show here, right, the custom let's say branding and stuff like that. Now in Inline Manual, we have something that we call variables that you can expose to the player. How it looks like, I'll just switch quickly to the code here. So this is one of our pages. So the pages I will be showing to you is dashboard 1, dashboard 2. So I believe this is dashboard 1. I might have it mixed, but doesn't matter right now. But essentially, this is the Inline Manual tracking code. That's what your developers implemented, which is identifying the user. Those will be variables changed on the fly for a given user. We have it here fixed for now. And then what you can do as well, you can expose certain variables, or certain, whatever you like really. And in this case, what we are exposing here, our own variables, we have here brand, we have here account manager, account name, account position. And this is specific. So for example, here we have that this user, or it will be on this specific page, the brand of this user will be Acme. Then we have account manager of that user on this page will be John. There's a name of that account manager, and there's also position of that account manager. It basically just matches the design of the step that we have there. So here it's it's set inside. This is basically here like a set to my name. So here you can see it's actually like this there. This shouldn't be here. Okay, so it's like it's not changeable. I mean, it's as part of the content. And now that we have this variable exposed, so one we have here. There we go. So on one page is this John as the account manager. On the other page, it's actually me for that user on that specific page. So there's the account manager is Marek, account name is Marek Sotek, and account position is CO. So if I go back to the authoring tool, because we have these variables there, we can actually use them as part of the content here. So for example, we have there this account name. What was the variable again? Let me just check. So variable was account name. So in this case, what we can do is that we can replace my name with the variable. So if I go here, and the variables are in these double curly brackets. So if I change it to account name, and if I we are not on the right page, so that's why it wasn't showing. So I'm going to dashboard. This is where we have implemented these variables. I mean, you will have it implemented across all the pages. So on this page, for example, we have this account name is John Best, right? So you can see it actually replaced on the fly. And if I go to the dashboard, you can see how it changes that there's Marek Sotak. And let me actually finish that. We have there also the account position. So I will just change this one to, again, curly brackets and account, how was it, position, like this. And now it says CEO. Let me actually run the preview of this so you can see it. And I'm going to switch to the dashboard and watch how it changes. So if I go to the dashboard, it changes to the, it's not playing now. Okay, it changes to John Best, Customer Success Manager, right? So we have replaced this. This is something that you can expose per user. And we have here also, well, one issue that we have here right now is that the image doesn't change. And what you can do there is that within your application, you can have like specific assets per brand. And if I show you my structure of the folder, so let me show you here. So we have here, let me actually delete this one. This shouldn't be there. So we have here images, right? And two of these images are this like John-account, Marek-account. And we have it inside of this like webinar brand. And actually, it should be inside of the images. We have it there. And if I go back here and I switch here, we have the image here, webinar images brand. Now it points to Marek account. What I can do here, I can use as well inside of the image, I can use the curly brackets for the variable and say this was the, was it account name, I believe? Let me see. Or was it just account? No, account manager. Okay, so I'll copy this and place it here. And it's replacing it because right now the variable is John, so it will use the John-account PNG instead of the Marek account PNG. And if I now again go to the other page, so now on this page, John is the account manager. If I go to the dashboard too and preview the topic, it's me. Right? And it's all based on these variables. So if you have specific, let's say, users and you know what account managers they are, you can use it as this, right? So you can expose these variables and use it as part of the content as well for the images. And again, when it comes to the branding, for example, we have there also this brand exposed. So not on this page, so there is no brand exposed, but on this page there is the Acme page. And if I show you again the structure that we have here, so there's the Acme-logo and default-logo. So default is basically when there's nothing there. So if I go back to my authoring tool, and then I have a little snippet, the image. So I'll just place the image, let's say about here. So you can see it's an image there, and there's the brand, right? So it basically replaces the brand and link into the Dash logo. Now nothing displays here because I am on the page where the brand is not defined. So what I can do, I can apply as well what will be the default variable or default content if the variable is empty. So I can say default, and you can see that it actually uses the default word instead, and it will show this your company logo here, for example, right? So if I now navigate to the other page, so if I go to the dashboard where there's the Acme as a brand, and I'll show you that, it will use the Acme file or image right? So this way you can make it kind of like this, like personalized based on the, let's say, the brand and so on. You can use these variables. Basically, your developers can do whatever they want. They can expose anything from here and use these variables that you can use afterwards in the content. And it could be basically whatever they can get from the application. So really, it's up to your I don't want to say imagination, but whatever you would like to see there. And you can ask them and see whether it's possible. Um, so for example, through that, what we have seen, not just like these images, but you can, let's say, if you have, like, let's say in our case, we can show you through our application, we can put into the step content, let's say how many topics you have created, right? Because we asked our developers, can we actually expose as part of the variables the number of, let's say, topics they have created, that specific users, and basically how it will look like that, or how it will look like at the end, it will be like this. Okay, so that's the variables and how we can use them as well in the content. So that's that. So I can save that actually. Okay, let me just quickly check whether we have some questions there, because I'm running into it quite a lot. Okay, so okay. No
Mark,
questions there?
Mark, there are some questions in this question form. If you choose it from the top menu, not on the chat. Not sure if you see it. If not, I can read them.
Okay, perfect. So we can get to it. I'll just show a few more things then, and yeah, and then we can go through them. And
Cool.
if you have still, you guys, if you have any questions, feel free to put it into the chat. If there's anything you would like to see. So the few last bits that I would like to show is essentially, or just tell you that really everything can be customized in Inline Manual. It just depends like what kind of like how far you would like to go with that. If I will just refresh here, open up this the widget. We have seen, for example, our customers using as well like emojis as part of the topic titles, right? So basically, what you can do there is that you can just, if I go to one of these topics that we have here, let me just quickly jump there. Topics here. You can see the emoji here. So basically, I can go into this, go to the settings, and just place an emoji here, and it will be visible in the widget as well, like this, right? Or for example, like here we have this quiz topic title, and there's this icon. And again, what is happening here, this quiz, I mean, this is not very pretty, but how it looks like is that we are actually reusing HTML the same I did with the content before, because you can see that there are some icons like here. If I again inspect that and I check, okay, we are using on this application some sort of like icons like this. So if I edit that, copy this, and then I can use it as part of the content of the title. So if I go back here, I mean, it looks a little bit ugly in the overview. Where do we have it here? So if I go to this topic, click on the settings, you can see it's there. And it's actually using the icon of the application that is defined within the application, so we can make it consistent. So here you can see that it looks like this. Okay. You can also style these topics on like what type they are, if you want. So each of them has its own class as well. So for example, if I show you this, there is always like this item player list item and then the type. So it's like feedback, tour. We have one just for an example styled, which is the redirect. So you can see it has its own custom CSS. You will get as well the link or the code there. So for example, the redirect that is part of the folder is aligned, or is kind of like there's more padding, and there's also icon in front of it. So you can then add icons based on the type of the topic itself. So all of this, again, you can customize through the CSS as you wish based on the type of that topic. And speaking of the trigger, again, that's the same case. I mean, I didn't want to go through this too much, but again, you can customize it as you wish. You can position it, you can move it around on the screen, and so on. So that's essentially I wanted to show you. There's actually one more thing just to show you like what is it's a little bit kind of like a test that we did for one of our customers, which is actually a quiz. And if I click on this quiz, what will happen? This is basic custom buttons that are styled, and there is just this animation when the user hovers over it. It will just do something like that, and there are answers, or there's a question basically. There are answers, and these are linking to specific topics. And if I click, I mean, here it's like the three of these are false, one of them is true. So if I click on the false, it will jump to a step which says, like this was wrong. I can go back. And then if I go on this one, it says that's correct, and I can go to the next question. So kind of like a poor man's, kind of like a quiz if you want to quiz the users, on their knowledge afterwards. And it depends how you build it, like how the structure will be that you can allow the users to move like through it or not, and you can actually look through, for example, like if I go to that topic, this is where the flow is useful that I have shown, or we have shown in the last webinar. Some of you might not have seen it, but let me show you which one was it. The quiz. Where is the quiz? Did I miss it? Quiz. Oh, there it is. So if I go to the flow and enter this topic there. So this is the quiz topic, and this is basically, it just shows you the flow of these, like the steps. So here we have these 4 different questions. Some of them leads to this false answer, some of them to the right answer, and then it allows them to move to the next step, right? So the flow can as well help you. It's done through as well CSS to kind of like make it look like as a quiz. And that's it. Maybe one last thing. I don't see any questions right now, but one last thing is we also got this kind of like interesting tip from one of our customers where they have used Giphy. I don't know if you know it, but it's like for the GIFs. And they also have like a quite simple editor, which allows you to extend some of your like screenshots that you have. And let me see if I can find say one of these. Why it's not showing anything? I need an image. No. Well, you can essentially like create an image or upload an image, and then you can. I'm just thinking why you can't do this here. And then you can add to it a like animated GIFs. So, for example, I was just doing that before. Okay, here we go. So if I, let's say, use this one, right, I can then go there and let's say apply some stickers. So for example, let's say if I use this is something that we have seen that they were doing, like let's say search for the cursor. And for example, I can add this to this, and that allows me to kind of create like animated GIFs that I can use as part of the step. It doesn't have to be just like for this, but, or it could be like there is as well like a, if you are going to create some sort of like a well done message, then you can put there, like this, like on top of your image as well, this kind of like clapping hands and stuff like that. So I just wanted to show you this. Okay, so we have some questions there. And so one of them is, can you please give us some more information on how you provide a checklist in a step? Right. So the one that we were showing from one of our customers, so it's actually just a content. So it was, if I go to, let me go to one of these, let's say, walkthroughs that we were working on, and I'll jump to, let's say, this step. So they created a table layout here essentially, and then they were just adding, for example, like their own checklist, let's say, through this list. So this will be, let's say, task 1, task 2, task 3. And then they essentially styled it. So basically what they did is that they, for example, went through this, or they had their own custom classes, and they would add here, let's say, their own style. So this will be, let's say, color will be, I'll just go with this color green. So you can see that it's kind of like a green right now. You can also make it afterwards like strike through and so on. And of course, you can make it much more nicer. And then basically they were just duplicating these steps and marking other steps as well. As the user went through this, they were marking some other steps as done. So it was done through the content actually, as long as they go through the actual walkthrough. I'll put a note, and maybe we can create some sort of like a style that we can send and that we can use right away afterwards. Okay, so there's another one. When using the player activate topic ID, can we then add jump to step 3 of that topic? You can. So essentially, if I jump to the help portal and there is the custom, what is it? Methods, public methods. So here is a activate topic. So that's when you don't want to jump to specific steps. So this one will jump to a first step. If you want to jump to a specific step, then it's activate step. And what you need to pass to it is a topic ID and the step ID, right? So these two essentially. And then it will jump to the step. Needless or something to remember, the step ID is starting from 0, so that's the step index. So in this case, step 1 will be here 0, step 10 will be, in this case, step 9. There's just a quick question whether there will be recording. Yes, we are recording this, so there will be definitely a recording. There's another one. We use Font Awesome, which is one of the libraries actually for icons. And so they are using it for help articles, for walkthroughs, and so on. When I add a language, I get an error evaluation. Is there a workaround? I'm not sure right now. So maybe, Lisa, we can take it. If you can send us a support request with this, like what you are actually trying to do and how we can replicate it, and we can try it out. I mean, we are using Font Awesome as well, so we can just give it a try and see how that works. Okay, well, given that it's already time and we should really finish, not to keep it too long, we'll try to skim the recording down a little bit maybe. And
Yes.
yeah.
Mark, sorry, there are just 4 more questions. In this question and answer form, so does the close button, this X, has a class as well?
Right, good question. Yes, it does. So if I click on this one, right click on this one, click on inspect, it has a INM player popover close button. And in fact, actually all of these classes you can find in the help center. So I think in the developer section there is, where is it? Okay, probably not here. It was there somewhere. So let me see, or customization was it? But we have all the classes kind of like listed here. I can't see it now. Here it is. How to customize Inline Manual with CSS, and basically all of these buttons and classes are there. Is there the close button? It's not. Good point. Okay, so we need to add it. Eva, are there any questions that you have seen?
Yes, one more. Is it possible to use the custom button table as a template later?
Custom button as a template. Yes, so we have there these step templates, and if I understand correctly, you can add custom buttons into the templates themselves. So if I, let's say, try to edit this one, there are the custom buttons. So I can actually add the custom button. And basically, whenever I will use this template, it will actually insert this custom button there, and I can edit it and use that. So that should be possible.
Okay, thank you. That was all.
Okay, perfect. So I don't see any other questions. So thank you very much for coming. I hope it was useful. And if you have any other questions, I don't know, Eva, if you have like a survey at the end, but if you will,
No,
yeah.
not this time.
Okay, so if you will have any kind of like other questions or any kind of like feedback whatsoever, what would you like to see next, or any other kind of like ideas or what you are struggling with, feel free to reach out with us at support@inlinemanual.com, and we'll be happy to hear what you have done, or even if you just want to show us like what you have been working on, what you have done, that would be great, so we can see like where we can help next. And actually, we do want to make this easier, so the CSS is not required. So we are gathering some more kind of like inspiration as well for these templates that you can then use out of the box. Okay, so
Okay,
thank you very much. Thank you, Eva.
thank you guys. We will send you the recording with the presentation and codes probably on Monday. So have a great day, and thank you very much one more time.
Thank you. Bye bye. There is a quick question about a bonus. It will be
Yes.
sent on Monday.
Yeah. The bonus is those codes that you can that are ready to use for you. So we'll send the whole package on Monday.
Okay, perfect.